What's up, everybody? Jeff Cooper here. Welcome back to Blue Collar Heathen on YouTube. And today we are going to be responding to Mr. Julian Pace. Mr. Pace is a Christian minister and apologist, and he has evidence of the resurrection of Jesus. Let's get this done. Mr. Pace is a Christian minister and apologist. He has his own ministry called Risen Savior Ministries. He has a BA in music, plays both guitar and piano, and an MA in biblical studies. As always, a link to the video will be in the description. I'll leave a link to his ministry as well if you guys want to check him out. Doesn't appear to have all that many followers on YouTube yet. Seems to be relatively new to that game, so go ahead and subscribe to his channel too. If you haven't already subscribed to this one, do this one first, then go subscribe to him. I found him to be rather personable in his presentation. One of the apologists I actually didn't mind watching. I took issue with a lot of things that he said, but we'll get into that here in a second. Okay, so Mr. Julian Pace.
Hi there, my name is
Hi.
Julian Pace, and I want to talk to you about the resurrection of Jesus. The resurrection of Jesus is the central Christian doctrine. If it's true, then Christianity is true. And if it's false, then Christianity is false. What you might be surprised to learn, though, is just how much good historical evidence there is to back up the resurrection.
I generally like to start response videos with a point of agreement. I think that, if we can get that, like one point of agreement, that would be great. I think that we would agree that if the resurrection is false, then Christianity is false. However, where I think we would disagree on that is, I wouldn't say that Christianity is false because the resurrection is false. I think it's false for many, many, many other reasons. But where we would vehemently disagree, I think, that is, if the resurrection is true, then Christianity is true. Because that doesn't quite follow. If the resurrection of your Christ character is true, that does not mean that Christianity is true. It just means that we did not understand death near as well as we thought. Now, as far as the historical evidence, which you started mentioning here, we'll see what else you got to say.
First of all, we can be confident that Jesus existed historically and that he died on a cross. Not only do we have the records of the four Gospels, which are historically reliable, but we also have the records of ancient historians Josephus and Tacitus, and they attest to Jesus' life and his death on the cross.
Okay, so what he's saying here is that there was a Jesus character that lived and died on the cross. Okay? Now, as far as the four Gospels being historically accurate, I don't think they are, but I think we'll have more of an opportunity to get into those because this is just the very beginning of the video. Now, I'm willing to grant that there was a character, a actual man, running around first century Palestine. They may have even been called Christ by his followers. I will allow that he lived, that he died, even that he was crucified by Pilate. I have no issue with this. Okay? Just granting that doesn't do much for your case. Let's see what else you got here.
Second, we can be confident that Jesus was given an honorable burial by Joseph of Arimathea in a tomb. Why can we be confident of this? Well, Joseph of Arimathea was a member of the Sanhedrin, and the Sanhedrin was the body that wrongfully condemned Jesus to death. And understandably, the early Christian church had no love for the Sanhedrin. Therefore, it's very unlikely that they would have fabricated a story about one of its members giving Jesus an honorable burial.
Okay, the Joseph of Arimathea character. Let's pretend for a moment that I'm a writer. Okay? Let's pretend. And in writing my narrative, I've written my main character into a predicament that I can't get out of. One of the ways that I could make a way out of it is to invent a character, throw him into the story exactly where he needs to be, have that character perform a function that he needs to perform, and bow him out. If I were to do that and attempt to submit that story for publication, any editor worth their salt would say, dude, this is... No, you can't do this. So, the Joseph of Arimathea character appears to follow this. Arimathea was not a real place. Can't find it on any map of the area in question. Whether you call it Israel, Palestine, Judea, however you want to do it, it's not on a map. It doesn't exist. There are many speculations as to where it might be, and many towns like, oh no, I think it refers to this, I think it refers to that, I think it refers to this other thing, but nobody's actually sure where Arimethea actually was, or even if it existed at all. In looking at the word Arimethea, it kind of translates to best disciple. So Joseph of Best Disciple appeared in the story when he needed to appear to perform a specific function essential to the narrative. This is suspect as hell. Not convincing, and we cannot be confident that this character was able to secure the body of a crucifixion victim for a tomb burial. Moving on.
Third, we can be confident that Jesus' tomb was found empty by his earliest followers. Why can we be confident of this?
Really?
Well, frankly, this is something that would have been very easy to disprove. If Jesus' body was still in the tomb, lifeless and decaying, when his early followers began to spread that he was alive again, the Sanhedrin could have pointed this out, shown his lifeless body to all, and ended the Jesus movement forever.
Stopping you there. Now, Mr. Pace and any other Christian, listen to this part. I'll even put a hot link to it. I'll put a hot link to all the little sections. An empty tomb is evidence of a tomb being empty. That is all. There is no empty tomb anywhere, ever, which is evidence of a resurrection. Now, Mr. Pace uses the word confidence a lot in this video, and I think he has a little different definition than I do. So let us say that this Joseph of Best Disciple character was an actual person, and he actually had tomb securing ability. Reasons that the tomb that he allegedly secured would be empty. Number one, that the body of Jesus, when taken down from the cross, was chucked into a mass grave with the rest of the criminals of Rome. That was standard protocol. That's what was done with them. It says he petitioned Pilate for release of the corpse, but was he successful? Would it have been more likely that the standard protocols were followed? I think it would be. Second, that he was unable to secure the tomb that he said he would. That he never had a tomb ready for Jesus' burial, so they pointed to, that one over there. Maybe he scammed them. Maybe he did secure the tomb. Maybe the tomb was actually there, ready to receive Jesus' body, and Joseph actually placed the body in it and then stole it. Or anyone else stole it. Grave robbing was a thing, particularly for figures which had people called zealots that were hanging around with them. There's any number of people that could have stolen the body or moved the body to protect it from, whatever imagined fate could have befallen it. If the tomb existed and it was empty, is no way evidence of a resurrection. That's an infuriating apologetic, because the assertion you wouldn't make that assumption on any other topic anywhere, I don't think. And why Christians appeal to the empty tomb is beyond me. It's baffling. I don't get it. Back to him.
Finally, we can be confident that Jesus was seen alive, that he was seen resurrected by his earliest followers. We have multiple early and independent sources that attest to this. Not only do we have the very early source of 1 Corinthians chapter 15, which tells us that 500 people saw Jesus, but we also have sources that tell us people like James and Paul saw Jesus. And this is interesting because previously they were very skeptical about...
You do not have multiple early independent sources of anything. You pretty much have one source, Paul. And Paul admits that he never saw Jesus. He never laid eyes on Jesus. He had a vision of Jesus and came to know him through Scripture and revelation. This is not seeing the risen Jesus. This is having an idea of what the risen Jesus might look like, might be. It is not equal. Stop claiming that it is. Now, as far as the assertion that 500 people saw the risen Jesus, nothing more than hearsay. We have no reason to believe that's true. We don't have any corroborating evidence of that occurring anywhere at all. We just don't. Mr. Pace, these apologetics have been tried already. They don't work. They're not convincing, and we can't be confident of them. Come on, buddy.
Jesus' ministry. They only became believers whenever they saw him risen again. Finally, we're also told that the very first people to see Jesus alive were actually a group of women. Now, why is this intriguing? Why is this interesting? Well, during Jesus' day, women were not seen as reliable witnesses to any event. And so, frankly, this is not a story that the early Christian church would have been likely to fabricate.
No. All right. Mr. Pace and any other Christian that wants to use the women weren't considered reliable witnesses, so why would the early Christian church, why would they invent this? You guys are ministers. You guys know the Bible, or ought to. Tell me, Christians, how many times, in how many ways, do the four Gospels of your blessed book say something like, the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. I know it's in Matthew. I know it's in Mark. I know it's in Luke. Is it in John too? Now, I'm just a heathen. I couldn't tell you chapter and verse. But I know that it's in those three. I know it's in the three. It probably is in John 2 somewhere. But I know it's in those three. Maybe you want to think about it. Because the women being last in society, the lowest rung on the societal ladder, being first to see the empty tomb, the first to see the risen Jesus, this completely syncs up with the Christian narrative. Or are you guys preaching something else?
If they had wanted to fabricate a story to make the resurrection seem more credible, they would have said that one of the apostles or one of Jesus' enemies had seen him alive first. Therefore, we can conclude that this story of women being the first people to see Jesus alive is very likely true.
We cannot and will not conclude that, because what we will conclude from that is that the women seeing him first is most likely fabricated, because it syncs up very, very well with Christian ministry.
Now, some people will try and chalk the resurrection up to just a string of hallucinations. But we've got to remember this, and it's very important. Hallucinations are an individual phenomenon, not a group phenomenon. And we know from early historical sources
Strawman in here a bit, buddy.
Saw Jesus.
Take a look at the Strawman. You're beating up the wrong guy.
Jesus alive in groups. Sometimes people will have hallucinations, but groups don't have hallucinations. So I hope you've become convinced, like I have, that the resurrection of Jesus really took place. But if you still have more questions, be sure to visit my website.
And that's about where he closes it up. So, Mr. Pace, I've not become convinced of your Jesus. I mean, I'll be willing to grant that in first century Judea there was a preacher, and we can even call him Jesus if you like, or Yusuf, or whatever you say his name was. And I'll give you that he was crucified by Pilate. And that's all I'll give you. I do not find the resurrection and ascension story at all convincing. That Joseph of Best Disciple, or Arimethea character, he reeks of literary construct. And the empty tomb is still not, and never was, evidence of anything at all. There's any number of reasonable explanations for it, and the women witnesses, they factor far too well into Christian narrative. It's not a convincing line. Get better ones. Okay? And Mr. Pace, though I don't believe you, I hope that your style and your delivery, I hope that it serves you well. But the substance of your video, it is not convincing. It may serve to bolster the faith of those that already have it. But for those of us that reject faith and see it as a negative thing, it's not going to be convincing to us. And when you title something "The Evidence of," what the rest of us are looking for is testable, verifiable proof. And you're not delivering. So give us the proof. or give us peace. If you haven't already, like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, get the notifications, follow us over on Twitter, at BCHVids on Twitter, and take it easy.